Hello and welcome to Mindfully Thrive with me, your host, Ella Humphreys. This is the podcast that celebrates the present, the joy in where we are, the journey it's taken to get here, and the ability to see our greatness for the future. We celebrate female founders, adventure seekers, and creative entrepreneurs who are building their dreams alongside raising babies and any other life commitments that can so easily distract us from the path we truly desire. This is a podcast about coming back to who we are in this life, and that our dreams, goals, and ambitions are valid and possible, while also being a loving and present parent. Being deeply loved by someone gives you strength, while loving someone deeply gives you courage. This week's quote by Lao Tzu is a favourite of our guest today. She's a beautiful soul whose presence and insight will make you feel instantly motivated to increase your wellness goals, to make better choices and create new habits. Joya Ewy is a certified yoga teacher, coach and ayurvedic specialist. She has developed a home practice structure that inspires even the most intimidated to get on the mat and show up. Her coaching experience combined with her dedication to creating a consistent practice allows her clients to extend their love of yoga and its benefits into all aspects of their lives. Join us as Joya shares her story of becoming empowered through the practice, how she found courage by owning her new identity, and ways she helps others manifest a life of their dreams using the philosophy of ancient yogic practices while combining them to modern day coaching principles. Hi Joya, welcome to the show.
Hi Ella.
So good to have you here. I like to ask all of my guests 3 simple questions. So whatever comes to mind for you is perfect. What are you grateful for today?
Okay, so I am always grateful for these things. My friends, my family, and my yoga practice.
Great. And what does thrive mean to you?
Thrive to me is achieving success and enjoying the process as you're getting there. So it's moving forward and growing and loving it.
And what does your ideal morning look like?
My ideal morning. Okay, well, my mornings in general, I have this intention right now to put boundaries around my energy. And I'm limiting the news, social media, and my emails, and just work for like the first hour. So I wake up, I have my coffee, and I just slowly ease into the day. I might listen to something inspirational or read some texts or meditate, but the first hour, work and the outside world is off limits for me.
So you kind of find a way of coming home to yourself again and fill your cup so that you're
Exactly.
ready to go.
Yeah, just starting really slow.
Great. So we should let the listeners know that Joya and I know each other through work. And what's interesting in our journey together is that quite a few years ago, we discovered that we had similar interests in self-development, personal growth, spirituality. And so we began the Lavender Sage. We began a blog together. Do you remember?
Mm-hmm. Yes. The
What
good
year
old
was
Lavender
that?
Sage days.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
About 2016, could it be? No, if not, a bit earlier.
I think even earlier, I think. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because Ellen was born in 2012. I think she may have been about 3, maybe in 2014, 15, around
Possibly.
that time.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And it was all about meditation and mindfulness and all of those things that we're actually really into at this moment. But something brought it to a head. And I think for me, I found I was kind of obsessing about building a following, getting the writing out, got into this need to produce content far too quickly. And it just became overwhelming to the point where I didn't feel like I was actually living my truth. And I was kind of being a bit of a fraud in it all in a way. I don't know. How do you feel about that time?
Basically the same. Like we kept finding excellent articles and excellent tips and techniques. But for me, it was like just looking for the next best technique and the next best tip. And without really putting them into practice and using them consistently. So in a sense, yeah, like you said, a fraud, I needed to live it and feel it first. And the whole act of just finding those articles and sharing them, I was putting too much energy into that and not enough into myself. So it was just kind of an imbalance there.
Yeah, totally. So we then kind of continued on our own journeys, and I went on to study and develop the mindfulness training, and sort of couldn't do everything. We were working full time. I had my girls, you have your boys. And so tell me what happened after the blog for you.
Yeah, so I just took time off. I didn't actually think we quit the lavender sage at that time. I thought we were just kind of we took a break, and as we were taking that break, I was just trying out those practices and practicing them and continuing to read and learn, see which ones worked for me. And then I guess eventually that blog just ran its course because we got so involved with our own lives. But I guess I decided I needed to work on my physical fitness, and I started going to the gym and finally discovered yoga. And for me, like, that was the magical moment.
Yeah, we'll come on to that. That's wonderful. And I know that you're really doing great stuff out there on Instagram and sharing lots of wonderful tools and coaching tips through yoga, which is fantastic. And then, so after the lavender sage, as we both moved into new phases, we then also jointly got sponsorship to go and do our master's coaching, which was heaven sent, I think, for both of us. Would you agree?
Yes, that was so special. So good.
We got to spend time at the weekends together and feeding off our interest in all things personal growth. And and the coaching has really changed our lives, I think. It's changing the lives of other people.
Exactly. It was just the perfect thing that could have happened to both of us.
So how have things changed and grown for you over the last few years since those lavender sage days, would you say? Discovering yoga and moving into coaching. How do you feel like you've evolved since the writers that we were on that blog?
So yeah, my mission became to just live those practices. And I was trying them all out and dabbling in a bunch. And I found yoga. So I was going to the gym. I felt good because I was going to different classes. But I just kind of felt like I had to push myself to go and push myself to show up and take care of myself. And I just happened to go one day to a yoga flow class. It felt like a gift. And I was so looking forward to going back the next day. That was like my first shift. I was like, okay, so now instead of pushing myself to go to the gym, that was my prize every day. And because I was giving myself that prize and taking care of myself, I just slowly started making better choices.
So the commitment to your yoga practice became quite an important aspect of your day-to-day. You'd say you started developing a need for that routine?
Yeah, I would say it was something that I looked forward to every day. So I would wake up, I would go to work, and I would say, yeah, I get to go home and go to my yoga class.
Did any other changes happen around that time? Sorry to interrupt.
No. So this is basically where I was going. And because I was taking care of myself in this way, I was just paying more attention. Starting to feel and notice the energy in my body. I was feeling more energized in many ways. But in certain aspects, I was still feeling kind of stuck or kind of complacent. And complacent is good. It's, peaceful and happy, but it was a complacency of like being stuck. I just had these thoughts that I needed to feel empowered. I needed every single faculty in my body to be able to make every decision with full awareness. I didn't want anybody manipulating my thoughts or directing my life. I wanted to be in charge. So those kind of thoughts combined with a big celebration and a really bad hangover made me decide to just say, guess what? Alcohol is not what I need right now. I am going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like celebrations and I do like to enjoy parties. So for me, it was like, okay, if alcohol needs to go, how can I go to a party and still have fun if I'm limiting my alcohol? So I really just had to do some research and look into people who don't drink and live the kind of lives that I'm interested in. So I found, celebrities, famous people, anybody to look up to who was teetotal. And I decided to say, okay, guess what? I'm teetotal. So from one day to the next, I just stepped into that identity and
wow,
said,
you
that's
just
who I
cut
am.
it dry. You cut it dry. And for you, it was much easier to maintain that decision from the get-go that this is who I now am. And I'm going to keep practicing this day by day. I choose not to do that anymore.
Exactly. And so for me at that moment, the pain of just kind of being stuck and the pain of that hangover was worse than the pain of feeling a little bit uncomfortable in front of people without a drink.
And so you could kind of almost, I imagine, go back and live that night again or that hangover again, and it would make that decision every time you went out with people to choose the water or to choose the soft drink. The memory of what you're choosing. How does that?
Exactly. That if I want to go from that pain perspective, yes, that memory is just, that hangover was painful. But at this point, I would say the benefits of having stopped drinking,
of course,
motivate me much more, because not only the hangover, it lowered my energy and just kept me feeling stuck and not getting as much done. But even like a random glass of wine in the middle of the week or at the weekend, the next day I was groggier. I wasn't doing as much as I'd like to do. So I say I'm much more productive now. I appreciate things for what they are without a false sense of relaxation or appreciation. It is what it is.
And so if our listeners are wanting to try this idea of changing a habit or change a lifestyle circumstance that they might feel stuck in, would you suggest that maybe at the beginning they need to look backwards until they remind themselves of how they were feeling in uncomfortable situations regarding, for example, the drink? So the memory of the hangover, until you then begin to notice over time actually the benefits that you're having from not having those drinks. Like, so start looking forward.
I would say, that memory is definitely very motivational. Moving away from pain is. I would say what made it easy for me in a sense was not, okay, I'm going to stop drinking to become teetotal. I went straight for, I'm going to be teetotal. So what do? I don't drink. So step into the new identity. That would be, who do you want to be? Be that, and then do the things that person does.
Fantastic. And so do you feel like maybe having claimed that new identity, it gave you the courage to run with making other changes?
Yeah, it's building my courage because I am constantly exposing myself to discomfort. And every time I'm in an uncomfortable situation, I grow and I can feel and find some sort of comfort. So my comfort zone grows. And
it's
that
often
does help.
said that, people, fear is what prevents people from moving forward. We fear the things. But more than fear, I feel it is the sense of discomfort that is creating us to this paralyzation in us, the feeling of stuckness. It's because we don't want to go through the discomfort. It's not necessarily scary or frightening, just uncomfortable.
Exactly.
So leaning into that newness of the not so comfortable sofa and stepping outside, or currently I feel a little bit like that right now.
Exactly.
Social anxiety for me has never been anything that I would describe myself as having, but having been in lockdown and in such a confined sort of scenario, seeing people on the streets and thinking about, we're going to start meeting up again, there's
Mm-hmm.
discomfort there again already. So
Yeah,
keeps
and the
coming up.
natural reaction is to avoid that pain and
Mm.
stay away from that discomfort. But when you can sit with it, you realize it's not so bad and you grow.
So Joya, we've come to that time in the show called Inspo Pause, where I ask you for inspiration for our listeners of things that you're currently doing. So what are you reading at the moment?
Okay, so I'm reading a book called Yamas and Niyamas by Deborah Adele. And it's about the first 2 limbs of yoga, of the 8 limbs of yoga. And they are just about how you relate to yourself and relate to others.
And what are you currently listening to?
So I've been listening to David G on Insight Timer.
Love his voice.
Yeah. And have you ever heard the soothing, healing, love meditation?
I'm not sure by name, but I will be listening this evening.
Definitely. I really enjoy that one.
What are you currently watching?
Okay, so I'm watching an oldie. I just started watching the series Homeland, and I'm watching it with my husband. So we both like that one.
Coincidentally, you're the second person today to recommend it to me, and I've never seen it. And even though it has been around for a few years, it must be good. And
it is. It's good.
Yeah? Who do you recommend for a follow on Instagram or Facebook?
Okay, so on Instagram, I guess I follow quite a few people, but the brain coach is somebody who posts really good tips for reframing thoughts. And I tend to read all of her posts, collect a lot, and she's just good. Check her out.
Definitely. I think I actually do follow her, and I have taken a few of hers and saved them.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that you're currently using, any apps or props or gadgets that you could recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, well, I guess I said David G on Insight Timer, but yeah, Insight Timer is a great app for meditation and mindfulness. I
also know that you use a fantastic prop for your yoga that you used quite early on. Could you share that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love using the yoga wheel. It just kind of lets you relax into your back bends and allows you to deepen those back bends quickly at the beginning when you don't have the strength to go deep. So instead of using the support of your arms and your legs, you're just relaxing onto that wheel and finding that flexibility. And then you can use it for all kinds of tricks, which I was practicing with and having fun with. It's fun.
Great. Well, thank you for those. So Joya, like I mentioned at the beginning, you give great coaching advice, and particularly using yoga as a tool to enhance our lives. And you've also recently started sharing quite a lot about the chakras and the doshas. Could you share a little bit about what it is you are doing at the moment?
When I'm coaching, I like to share with my coachees different techniques and different tools that they can incorporate into their own personal practice. Ones that will build self-awareness, self-esteem, self-love. And yogic philosophy has all of those tools. And as I learn more and discover more, I have more to share in my coaching practice. And I would say I went through a phase of Chinese medicine, which is just working with the body and physical pain and how that links to emotional pain. I found some really great tips. And then I moved on to Ayurveda, which also works with energy and the elements. The elements are slightly different, but the idea is the same, that our physical bodies are made up of these elements, and we're always trying to find the perfect balance. And the chakras as well, different energy centers within our body that can become blocked. And if the energy is flowing, we have increased well-being. And I work with all of those just to help my coachee find balance and happiness and wellness and all of that.
And so, yeah, I recently filled out the quiz that you have in your link in your Instagram. And it was really insightful because it talked about what dosha I am. And it gave me a lot of information about what I can do in the choices that I make every day. So my results came up as kapha.
And so, yeah, kapha is made of earth and water. So if you can imagine the mixture of the two, like clay, like mud. So those would be the characteristics. You're not only kapha. We're all three doshas, always. You're a mixture of kapha, pitta, and vata. But if it came up as kapha, it's because that is your majority, like it's your primary dosha. And because it's your primary dosha and you have more kapha than the other doshas, what you want to work on is keeping that dosha in check, because excess kapha can produce sluggishness or lethargy, sometimes depression or stuckness or mucus in the body. So you want to work with opposites. So if kapha is slow, you want to work with something fast. If kapha is heavy, you want to increase lightness. We all have some sort of imbalance, basically all the time, unless we're in perfect balance. But eventually, if you get to know all the doshas, you can kind of self-regulate, because even though your primary dosha is kapha, it doesn't mean that you're feeling sluggish today. You might be feeling scattered, or if you're feeling scattered, that means there's too much air in your body. So there's too much vata. And if you're feeling angry and explosive, well, then there's too much fire, there's too much pitta. So if you get to know them all, you can say, okay, I'm feeling a lot of pitta, I'm feeling fiery, I want to calm that fire. Or I'm feeling scattered, I need to find some grounding energy and just calm down, warm my body.
It was really interesting to read, because in hindsight, I do feel like I can be a sofa chick and just chill out. I'm very good at chilling out. But over the last 6 months, let's say, I've developed a lot of practices that I do every morning. So the walking and my meditation, and it talked about the necessity for me to have routine. And that movement of my body at the beginning of the day has really changed the way I go about the rest of my day, and building on habits that have enabled me to create this podcast and do all the other things aside from just the everyday stuff that needs to be done. So it was nice to read it, having made the changes already that it was sort of suggesting I should make when I was feeling like there was an imbalance in the kapha.
Okay, good. So you incorporated those techniques before you knew you had to, but you realized they were good for you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, so it's kind of like just giving that nod to you're on the right path, as it were.
Great.
And your yoga practice and the coaching that you do, we've talked a lot about this before, the way that you do your postures, your 12 postures, and how they can change the flow of energy moving upwards or moving downwards. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, okay. So my home practice is not the same as a yoga class. Obviously, like in a yoga class, you're totally guided, you relax, you don't have to think. And to continue with yoga at home, there can be resistance to get on the mat, because you feel like you have to come up with a new sequence and new ideas and new flows and make it so complete. So I discovered something that's been around for a really long time, the Shivananda sequence, or the 12 basic postures. When I first discovered these postures, all it said was, these are the only postures you need. Practice these and your body will be in perfect health. So I was like, okay, I want to do yoga at home. I want to keep up my routine. I'm just going to do these postures. And I really noticed that it was easy for me to get on the mat. It was easy for me to show up. And after I did those postures, I wanted to keep going and keep exploring and add other ones on. And so I started doing research, and I found out that like yeah, there's a lot more to these 12 postures. They were organized like this because they flow with the chakras and the energy centers. If you're working the same energy centers, you can incorporate a whole lot more postures to this sequence. So I've been reading a lot about that and learning about that and adding on to my practice. And that's what I recommend to the people I coach, because I feel like if you want a home practice, it needs to be simple, but you also need to have room to grow. And then, okay, so these chakras and this downward flow, for me, that was like, oh, wow, it meshes with coaching too, because they call the downward current the manifesting current. What I've read is that if there's a blockage in this downward current, you have great ideas, but you have trouble bringing these ideas into physical manifestation, into reality. And then if you're working with the upward current, the other flow of energy, you're working and you're working and you're working, but you're just not getting anywhere because you're not inspired. It's not inspired action. And basically, if you're working to unblock all your chakras, the energy can flow up and down in both directions, and you can whistle while you work, basically, and get things done and enjoy it and all of that.
The pause button. So for today's practice, I would like you to think of a situation where a decision or a choice may need to be made. Once you have a situation in your mind, we're going to practice the mindful meditation for implementing wisdom. So whatever it is you're doing, whether it's in the car, walking, or lying on your bed, take 3 deep, slow, conscious breaths. This is a way of gathering your awareness to the present moment. Bring that awareness to your head and acknowledge what kind of thoughts are present in relation to the current situation. Now drop the awareness down to the heart. Perhaps place a hand over the heart and take a moment to attend to what values you have in this situation, what you care about, and what your deepest intention is. We'll continue to drop the awareness down into the gut by placing a hand over the abdomen. Tune in to any hunches, intuitions, or emotions that are present in relation to the current situation. Collect all this information by taking 1 deep, slow, conscious breath in and out as you have a sense of collecting all the data from the body and mind. Then mentally ask yourself this question: what shall I do now? Listen for the answers. As we become still and attuned to our soul, you find the guidance you need from within. This deep inner stillness, may it help you make choices easily and spontaneously. And you can repeat the affirmation: I choose for my highest good. I choose for my highest good. This meditation can be done in as little as 30 seconds when you need to make a quick decision, or you can do a longer version that takes up to 5 minutes when you have more time. It's a simple, powerful mini meditation that will help you be more mindful about decisions and will be your ally in times when you need mindfulness the most. May it serve you well. Let's get back to the show. So this is a really powerful concept for yogis, but for everyone who wants to develop a yoga practice. First of all, I think from what you said about sticking to the 12 basic postures, takes away all that thinking. You only really need to focus on 12. So you're eliminating so much other noise. You don't need to confuse yourself by, like what you said, just getting on the mat and doing those 12. It's a little bit like, I set my alarm and I know I'm going walking and I know the route. I do the same route every single day, so I can take away the thinking that's involved, which creates the indecisiveness, which then might end up making me change my mind in the end.
So not having to think makes it really simple and easy to show up. And every day I might have that resistance to getting on the mat. But when I tell myself it's just a short sequence, it's only 12 postures, I can get on and I can keep it short if I need that. If I want to go slow and take it longer, I can do that. If I want to practice energetically, I can do that. But the thing that gets me on the mat immediately is just convincing myself it's only 12 postures. Get on the mat.
I'm really keen to return to yoga. I've done it on and off over the years. Well, as you know, my mum was a yoga teacher, so I was brought up doing yoga, but I've left it for a while. And I'm really interested to do the manifesting flow, the sequence. So what's the best way for me to start that?
Okay, so the manifesting sequence is the 12 basic postures.
Where do I find those?
So if you head over to my Instagram page, I've been posting a lot about them. I've been linking them to my highlights. So if you just find the highlights of 12 basic postures, you'll see which ones they are. Don't get intimidated though, because the very first posture is the headstand. Okay. And I would say that that's what turns the majority of people off, but you can easily substitute that for downward dog or dolphin or just headstand prep. So that would just mean you get into the position of going up in headstand, but you don't go up. Okay. And it has all the benefits. It's followed by shoulder stand and plow, which are also poses that scare people, but they're very beneficial. So with those two, if you don't practice yoga regularly, it's important to protect your neck. Get a blanket and just make sure your neck is stable before you try those two. And then afterwards, they're comfortable, easy poses. You might not be able to get up into crow pose yet, but that's okay. You can stay in a squat until you're ready to get up. But yeah, check out the 12 basic postures on my Instagram page. And you can find those postures in my highlights. And in my bio, you can take that dosha quiz like you just did. And you might not recognize it as such, but the yoga poses that I've sent you in that packet are based on the 12 basic posture sequence. And fantastic. It gives you that sequence. So you've got the downward current, the manifesting current. And you also have the options that are the most beneficial to kapha. So you can add them on to make sure that you are more energized and moving. Wow. And yeah.
A complete package.
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to this new me. Just you watch.
Okay. Yes.
I wonder if you could share a little bit more about, how you can motivate people who are desiring to step up and into their power, whether it be through yoga or through coaching tools.
Yeah. So I would say whenever you feel disempowered, it's because you feel like you don't have a choice. And I would help them to see that there is a choice. And if they can just find what that choice is and make that choice, they will feel empowered.
And it brings us back to what you said at the very beginning, showing yourself love and care, giving yourself time in the day, committing to yourself and giving yourself that importance that you are a priority. Which,
choosing to commit to yourself, choosing to show up for you. And yes, we have to choose to fill our own cups, and then we can share our cups with the rest of the world.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute delight, as always, and we'll continue to speak.
Thank you for having me.
See you
It's
soon.
been fun. Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Speaking with Joya today on the subject of yoga and implementing habits reminded me of Gandhi's philosophy that I was teaching my students this week. Your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. In short, your beliefs will create your destiny. So what do you believe about yourself, your potential, and your future? What you believe will surely become. Habits can be altered if we are self-aware enough to notice what we want to change or what is not benefiting us. What incremental differences could we make in our days to gradually move into the person we want to become in the future? This is a practice I do with my clients called future self-scripting, where you write out your vision of how you'd like it to be in the future, but you write it in the present day. Just like Joya mentioned, owning the identity of being teetotal allowed her to make the right choices and adjust her behavior accordingly to that new identity. Eventually, you become that person in the present, and your thoughts, words, and actions, including your habits, all match that vision of your future self. One day, you'll wake up and realize you are already living your dream life. Try building a system for success into your day. Prioritize self-love. Decide on your new identity. What choices do you make? Start small, keep it simple, stick to one new routine until it becomes a habit, and add another into the mix once you feel you've mastered it. Plan it out beforehand so that you do as little thinking as possible. I remember Steve Jobs dressed exactly the same way every day, so he didn't have to use up valuable thinking power in what to wear. If you want to start a yoga practice, follow Joya's lead and begin with the 12 basic postures. You can find them in her gram. Keep it short until you feel connected and excited to evolve. If it's getting out and walking you want to do, my suggestion is to pick a short route that brings you back home in the planned time and stick to the same route every day. Set the alarm and don't hit snooze. I promise after one full week you'll be buzzing, feeling so proud of your success. Don't aim too high, too far, too quick. Above all, pick the things that feel joyful in the moment of doing them. I look forward to seeing you next week, and thank you so much for listening to the show.